Thank you, Jeremy. You all know me as Rick Richardson. If you study my emails carefully, you'll see that you might get something from Randolph Richardson. And if you're really, really astute, you'll see that the emails come from Randolph Richardson II. Randolph Richardson I died about 4.5 years ago. And he had 2 kids, no brothers, no sisters, few cousins. So my sister and I survived. She has 2 kids, I have 3 kids. So he has 5 grandchildren. Once the last of those 5 grandchildren is gone, he will be, as they say, lost to history. Because he lives on in our memories now, although none of you ever met him, I believe. And there's very little record of him. There's very little that would tell you, somewhere you might be able to find out that he worked in a bank. Or you might be able to find out where he went to college or how old he was when he passed away. But there's very little record of my father. And so at some point he will be lost to history. History is memory and or record. But memories diverge and records conflict. History, they say sometimes, is written by the victors. But that just emphasizes the role of the historian, the person who is making that record that we can then look back on later to say, what was it that happened? And you want to have in that historian a trust that the record is being written in a particular way, that it's being reported accurately. So if someone ever Googles my father someday, they'll get accurate perspectives on him. But there's really no one out there who would want to or have any motive to write anything inaccurate or create an inaccurate record about his life. This month we acknowledge and celebrate the contributions of Black History Month. And generally speaking, we look at things that, and the purpose of the month is to look at things that may have been overlooked or underreported or not taught. So what is history and why is it important? There's an objective part. What actually happened? History is what did happen. There's also a subjective part that makes history interesting and not just a recitation of facts. The subjective part is, well, why did it happen? What does it mean? The Spanish philosopher George Santayana said, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. And I always think it's an interesting phrase because I think, well, there's some really great memories I have from college and high school and beyond that I don't remember. Does that mean I get to repeat those? But the way that it says condemned makes the point that it's not you're forgetting the great stuff that makes you do it again. It's if you don't learn the mistakes of the past, those will become the mistakes of the future. So when we say things like, we will never forget, we're saying we will learn from history and we will do our parts not to let the bad parts of history be repeated. But Holocaust survivors are dying off. So that part, the memory part of history, will soon be gone and we'll only have the record. When Kathy and I flew back from Spain a few days ago, we landed in Newark and there's big signs, 9/11 signs, and it says, we will never forget, we will never forget, we will never forget. And at some point, 9/11 will also be lost, the memory will be lost, and it'll just be the record that exists. So how do we remember the past? The past is not just the data and the statistics, but it's what they meant. That's the key. I've mentioned here before that intelligence is knowing that tomato is a fruit, and wisdom is knowing not to put tomato in a fruit salad. When we apply wisdom to the past, apply wisdom to our knowledge, we examine the record, we choose our sources of history, we challenge, and we analyze. Why? Because understanding the past, the causes and effects, will help the only thing that really matters, which is how we live in the present and how we're going to live in the future. And only a clear-eyed analysis of the past can lead to reconciliation in the present and to progress in the future. So as the writer David Brooks says, history remains a conversation with no end.